Hello there, and welcome to Edge of Mind. Tonight, we'll take our time with an idea that feels vast but strangely gentle, a quiet kind of wonder. You check your phone and notice the date, feeling slightly surprised by what you see there. March feels like it just started, but somehow it's already the 15th day now. The weeks blur together now, each one folding into the next without much distinction between them. When you were 8, summer vacation stretched endlessly ahead of you, full of possibility. Your mind measures time by comparing it to everything you've already lived through so far. A single year used to be 1/8 of your entire existence back then, massive and important. Now that same year might be 1/40th of your life, getting smaller each time it comes around. The fraction keeps getting smaller, quieter, almost disappearing from your awareness completely and silently. Think about learning to ride a bike, or your first day of school years ago now. Those moments feel huge in memory, dense with detail and emotion that still lingers. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, you are welcome to subscribe for more videos like this. It helps these quiet stories reach the right people. And by the way, where are you watching from tonight? I'd love to see where in the world you're listening from in the comments. Your brain was encoding everything then, filing away each new sensation carefully in memory for later use. Nothing felt routine yet, so everything got saved in vivid detail for you to remember. But yesterday's drive to work probably feels thin, almost transparent in your memory right now. You've made that same trip hundreds of times before, and it shows clearly. Your mind skips over the familiar parts, saving energy for what's actually new and different today. The route becomes background, barely noticed or remembered at all by your brain anymore. This is where time starts to slip away from us without any warning at all lately. Routine creates gaps in our memory timeline, making days vanish into thin air around us. When you look back at last month, you're searching for clear landmarks to guide you through. Without them, the days seem to have vanished into nothing but empty space and silence. Your 8-year-old self was constantly surprised by the world around them every single day then. Every season brought discoveries. Every week held something different and new to explore carefully. Those rich memories create the feeling that time moved slowly back then. Unhurried and full, always. More happened, so more time seemed to pass in your mind's careful accounting system. Now you might realize it's Thursday only, when someone mentions it casually in passing conversation today. The days flow together like water, smooth and unmarked by anything particularly memorable or special. Your attention has learned to filter out the predictable moments throughout each ordinary day. Now, it's efficient, but it makes time feel faster and emptier than it used to be. Weekend plans used to feel like distant adventures when you were young and expectant back then. You'd count the days, mark them off calendars with excitement building inside you. Slowly, now Friday arrives without much fanfare, and Sunday evening appears suddenly before you can prepare yourself. The weekend compressed into a single breath, barely felt or noticed at all anymore. Your emotional state changes how time feels in the moment too, surprisingly and powerfully each day. When you're deeply focused, hours can disappear completely without trace or memory of them. But when you're waiting for something important, minutes stretch endlessly before you like warm taffy. Your mind's clock runs on feeling, not just physics or mechanical time passing by. Remember sitting in a boring class, watching that clock crawl forward painfully and slowly then. Then think about losing track of time with friends, laughing until your sides hurt completely. The same 60 minutes can feel eternal or instant, depending entirely on your current state today. Your brain adjusts its perception based on what's happening around you right now. This explains why childhood summers felt infinite, while adult vacations flash by in memory now. You were more present then, more aware of each moment as it unfolded so slowly and carefully. Every day brought something worth remembering, so your mind created detailed records of everything happening around you. Those rich memories make time feel abundant, full of life and wonder now. Your adult brain has become selective about what deserves attention each ordinary day that passes by quietly. It automates the familiar and focuses on the urgent, instead of the beautiful moments around you. This saves mental energy, but it also makes weeks vanish without trace or memory from your life. Without conscious moments, there's nothing to anchor time in your mind's careful records and stories. The drive to work becomes invisible. The morning routine fades completely from awareness each day that passes. Your mind treats them like background music, barely heard or noticed anymore at all. When December arrives, You wonder where the year went so quickly and quietly without any warning. Your memory holds only a few clear moments, worth keeping close to you safely now. But those moments from childhood remain vivid, each one a small eternity preserved carefully inside your heart. Your brain was paying attention then, recording everything with care and wonder naturally. The good news is that attention can be redirected, gently and naturally back home again today. Small changes in routine create new memory markers for time to hold on to tightly. Taking a different route home, or noticing 3 things during your morning coffee ritual each day. These tiny shifts wake up your awareness again, bringing you back to life slowly. Your mind starts encoding details again, creating the texture that makes time rich and full of meaning. The days begin to have weight and substance once more, solid and real. It's not about filling every moment with adventure or constant novelty throughout your day ahead. It's about being present for the moments you already have, right here with you. The 8-year-old version of you wasn't trying to slow down time deliberately or carefully back then. They were simply awake to what was happening around them, naturally and easily. That same awareness is still available now, waiting quietly inside you like a patient friend today. It just needs to be invited back into your ordinary days with gentleness and care. Time will always move at the same pace outside your window, steady and unchanging forever. But inside your mind, it can stretch and expand again like it used to. The secret isn't in changing what happens to you each day as you live your life. It's in changing how much attention you bring to what's already there waiting for you. Your phone still shows March 15th, but now you notice the light around you today, the way it falls across your hands, soft and present and real. That light carries something more than brightness, something your younger self understood without trying. It carries the weight of this single moment, unrepeatable and fleeting through your fingers like warm sand. When you were 8, you didn't know that time was supposed to speed up with age. You lived inside each hour, like it was a vast country to explore slowly. Your mind back then was like a camera with fresh film, capturing everything with equal wonder. The texture of tree bark, the sound of rain, the way shadows moved across walls. Now your mental camera has become selective, saving space for only the most important shots carefully. Most moments pass by unrecorded, like scenery from a train window moving quickly past you. This efficiency comes at a cost that you're only beginning to understand clearly now. Without those detailed recordings, your memory holds fewer anchors for time to rest upon quietly. Think about your last birthday compared to your 8th one, decades ago in childhood memories. Your 8th birthday probably lives in your memory like a small movie, full of details. The cake, the wrapping paper, who was there, what you wore that special day ahead. Your mind saved it all because everything felt worth remembering back then, naturally and completely. But last year's birthday might feel thin in comparison, more like a photograph than a film. The details have been filtered out, leaving only the essential facts behind in storage now. Your brain has learned to sort experiences into categories, worth remembering and not worth remembering carefully. Most daily moments fall into the second category now, automatically and quietly without question. This sorting happens so fast you don't even notice it working throughout your day. Your mind decides in milliseconds what deserves storage and what can be discarded safely away. The familiar commute gets filed under background noise and fades from active memory immediately after it happens. The surprising conversation with a stranger gets carefully preserved and catalogued for later recall when needed. Over time, this creates a strange imbalance in how your life feels when remembered clearly. The background moments vastly outnumber the memorable ones, making months feel empty, compressed, and somehow lost. Your 8-year-old brain didn't make these distinctions yet, treating everything with equal curiosity and wonder. A puddle was as fascinating as a birthday party, both worth your full attention. That's why those years feel so rich and full when you look back now with older eyes. Every day contained multiple moments worth saving, creating a dense timeline of experiences carefully preserved and held. A week filled with new experiences feels longer than a month of routine, both while living it and when remembering. Your brain uses memory markers to estimate how much time has gone by quietly. When you try to remember last month, you're really searching for distinctive moments that stand out clearly. Without them, the days blur together into a single, shapeless stretch of time, quietly forgotten. This is why vacations feel short, but also somehow eternal in memory afterward. like distant dreams. They're packed with new sights, sounds, and experiences that your mind eagerly records with care. But the weeks before and after the vacation disappear into routine, leaving gaps in your personal timeline. The vacation becomes an island of rich memory, surrounded by empty space, floating alone and separate. Your attention acts like a spotlight, illuminating whatever it touches with the possibility of memory and presence. What stays in darkness fades away, as if it never happened at all. The spotlight has grown narrower over the years, focusing only on what seems immediately important and urgent. Everything else slips by in shadow, unnoticed and unremembered, disappearing completely into the background silence. But attention can be widened again, gently and deliberately, like adjusting a camera lens with care. Small shifts in focus can bring the background back into sharp, clear view, slowly and quietly. The drive to work doesn't have to be invisible anymore, lost in automatic routine and habit. You can choose to notice one new detail each morning, something small and present. Maybe it's the way frost covers certain windows, but not others, on cold days ahead, or how the light changes as seasons shift, painting familiar buildings differently each week, slowly and quietly. These tiny observations become anchors for memory, giving each day its own distinct character and flavor. Your mind starts recording again, creating the texture that makes time feel substantial and real. The goal isn't to remember everything, which would be overwhelming and impossible for anyone to manage. It's to remember enough to give each day weight and presence in your life story. Even small moments of attention can stretch time in surprising ways, making ordinary days feel richer. A mindful cup of coffee becomes 5 minutes of actual experience instead of background activity. Quietly present, your mind begins to distinguish between days again, instead of letting them flow together seamlessly into nothing. Tuesday has its own flavor, different from Wednesday, both worth keeping in memory and holding close. This doesn't require dramatic changes or constant vigilance throughout your busy day ahead. It's more like tuning into a radio station that was always playing quietly, waiting patiently for you. The present moment broadcasts continuously, but you've learned to tune it out over time slowly. Turning the volume back up reveals what was always there, waiting patiently for your return, softly and gently. Your younger self was naturally tuned to this frequency, receiving every signal with clarity and wonder. That same receiver still works perfectly, just waiting to be switched on again, quietly and gently. The March light still falls across your hands, carrying the same invitation it always has: to notice, to be present, to let this moment register fully in your awareness. Time moves forward at its steady pace, indifferent to your attention or distraction, but your experience of that time can expand or contract based on how much you're actually here. The richness you're seeking doesn't require perfect memory of every single detail or moment that passes. It's about creating enough texture, enough small distinctions, so that days feel separate from one another. When you notice the barista's new haircut, or the way shadows fall differently today, something shifts. Your mind marks that Tuesday as separate from Monday, giving it its own small identity. These micro-observations work like breadcrumbs along your path through time, each one tiny but significant. They don't need to be profound or life-changing to serve their purpose quietly. The smell of rain on hot pavement becomes Thursday afternoon in July, forever marked in your memory. The sound of construction starting earlier than usual becomes the morning you remember. Weeks later, your brain doesn't need drama to create lasting impressions, just distinction from what came before it. A single unexpected detail can anchor an entire day in memory, making it feel retrievable. This is why travel feels so time-expanding, even short trips to nearby places you know well. Everything requires fresh attention when the environment changes around you, naturally and completely. The hotel breakfast tastes different from your usual cereal at home each morning, somehow unfamiliar and strange. The elevator buttons feel odd under your fingertips, requiring conscious thought and awareness throughout the day. Your mind can't rely on autopilot in new surroundings, so it stays alert and engaged throughout. Every choice becomes deliberate, from which direction to walk to where to sit. But you don't need to travel constantly to access this heightened state of awareness within yourself. The same alertness can be cultivated in familiar environments, gently and with practice. Taking a different route home forces your mind out of navigation autopilot for a little while, Suddenly you're seeing streets that were always there, but never quite noticed before today. The house with the unusual mailbox, the tree growing through the sidewalk crack, becomes visible again. These details were invisible during your routine commute, filtered out as unimportant background noise. Now they become landmarks in your personal geography, making this particular journey home memorable and truly distinct. Your brain files it under worth keeping, instead of discarding it immediately afterward, creating lasting impressions. Even small changes in routine can wake up your attention this way throughout the day. Sitting in a different chair at lunch, taking the stairs instead of the familiar elevator, your mind notices the shift and pays closer attention to the experience unfolding around you slowly. The view from the stairs, the feeling of your legs working, the sounds echoing. These moments don't feel significant while they're happening, but they create texture in memory later on. Later, when you try to remember last week, these small differences help days separate from each other. The accumulated effect is subtle but powerful over time, like interest compounding slowly and steadily through months. Weeks begin to feel distinct rather than blending into an undifferentiated mass of sameness and routine. Your timeline develops more anchor points, more places for memory to rest and hold on to experiences. Time regains some of its childhood density, filled with moments worth keeping and treasuring. The irony is that slowing down your experience of time requires speeding up your attention completely and deliberately, noticing more, not less, of what's actually happening around you right now in this moment. Your younger self did this naturally, without effort or conscious intention behind any of it at all. Everything was worth examining, because everything was still relatively new and surprising to discover. That curiosity muscle still exists, just dormant from years of efficiency and routine patterns that developed. It responds quickly when you start exercising it again, like riding a bicycle after years away. The March light streaming through your window carries information you've been ignoring for months now. The angle, the warmth, the way it illuminates dust particles floating through the air around you. Your attention can expand to include these details without overwhelming your day or causing unnecessary stress throughout. They become part of the background music of your life, enriching without demanding anything from you. This isn't about forcing yourself to notice everything, which would be exhausting and impossible to maintain. It's about allowing yourself to notice something, anything, with genuine curiosity and gentle awareness. The coffee tastes slightly different today, maybe because of the humidity or your shifting mood throughout. Instead of drinking it automatically, you pause to actually taste it and really notice. That pause, lasting maybe 3 seconds, creates a small island of presence in your morning routine. Your brain marks it as a moment of actual experience, worth filing away for later. These islands accumulate over days and weeks, creating a richer texture in your memory of time. Time begins to feel more substantial, less like it's slipping through your fingers constantly. The goal isn't to become hyper-aware or anxiously attentive to every stimulus around you throughout the day. It's to gently wake up from the trance of complete automation, slowly and with patience. Your life contains countless opportunities for these small moments of presence throughout each day that passes. The challenge is remembering that they're available, waiting patiently for your attention and gentle awareness. Sometimes the very act of searching for these moments changes how they feel when they arrive. You become more patient with the small delays, the unexpected detours that interrupt your planned day throughout each hour. The elevator stops on every floor, and instead of checking your phone, you listen to the mechanical sounds carefully. Each floor brings different voices, different fragments of conversation drifting through the doors like whispers from other worlds. Your mind starts collecting these tiny observations without any effort or conscious decision to do so. The woman on the 3rd floor always carries a red umbrella, rain or shine through every season that passes. These details don't feel important while you're gathering them, but they create threads through your days. Later, you remember Tuesday as the day you noticed the umbrella, Wednesday as the construction noise. Your calendar might show identical meetings, but your memory holds the texture of difference between them. The way morning light shifted across the conference table, the new coffee shop across the street. This is how time regains some of its childhood weight, one small observation at a time, slowly, not through dramatic changes, but through gentle attention to what's already there around you. The irony runs deeper than just noticing more to slow down your experience of passing time. When you were young, everything demanded your full attention, because survival depended on learning constantly. Your brain couldn't afford to ignore details that might prove important for navigating this strange world. Every face was potentially significant, every sound worth investigating and remembering for future reference. Now your mind has mapped most of your environment, filing familiar things as safe to ignore without hesitation. The route to work, the usual breakfast, the predictable rhythm that carries you through each day. This efficiency serves you well, freeing mental energy for complex tasks and important decisions throughout your day. But it also creates that sense of time dissolving into sameness, weeks blending together seamlessly. Your brain treats familiar experiences like background music, present but not consciously processed or stored. The same grocery store visit happens hundreds of times, becoming one blurred memory instead of distinct events. But novelty doesn't require traveling to distant places or making dramatic life changes to access it fully. Sometimes it's as simple as taking a different aisle through the familiar store. Suddenly you're seeing products you never noticed, hearing conversations from different angles than usual. Your attention sharpens slightly, just enough to create a small distinction in memory later on. The produce section looks different from this direction, organized in ways you never observed before today. These micro-explorations cost nothing, but create tiny landmarks in your mental timeline of experiences throughout each day. Your brain responds to these small adventures with increased alertness, marking the day as somehow different, not better or worse, just distinct from the routine pattern it expected to follow naturally. This is why even minor changes in your environment can stretch your perception of time passing. A new restaurant, a different walking path, an unfamiliar radio station playing in the background softly. Your mind engages more fully when patterns break, even slightly, creating richer memories to anchor each day. The accumulated effect builds slowly, like sediment settling into layers of distinct experience over time. Time becomes less like a rushing river and more like a series of connected pools, each one clear enough to see into, separate enough to remember individually and distinctly throughout your days. The weekend phenomenon reveals another layer of how your mind constructs its experience of duration and flow. Friday evening arrives with anticipation, stretching the hours with possibility and freedom from routine. Saturday morning feels spacious, unscheduled time spreading out before you like an open field of possibility. But Sunday evening contracts sharply, the weekend suddenly feeling like it passed in minutes. This isn't about the actual hours, which remain constant regardless of your perception or mood. It's about how your mind organizes and weighs different types of time passing through awareness constantly. Anticipated time feels longer while you're waiting, but shorter when you look back afterward and reflect. The weekend you looked forward to all week seems to vanish the moment it ends completely. Your brain processes unstructured time differently than the measured hours of weekdays and scheduled obligations. Without clear markers, Saturday afternoon can feel both endless and fleeting simultaneously, shifting between extremes. 2 full days somehow compress into what feels like a few scattered moments of actual experience. But this compression happens partly because weekend time often lacks the variety that creates lasting memories. Sleeping late, watching shows, running familiar errands create this blending effect through repetition and sameness. Without distinct events to separate one weekend hour from another, they blend together like watercolors. Your mind files them as one general experience, rather than a series of specific moments throughout the days. This is how vacation days with planned activities feel longer in memory afterward. Each museum visit, each new restaurant, each unfamiliar street creates its own separate file. The same principle applies to any unstructured time in your life, not just weekends and holidays. Long evenings at home can disappear without trace if they lack distinguishing features or memorable details. Your attention shapes not just how time feels while passing, but how substantial it seems afterward. The evening spent reading becomes more memorable than the one scrolling through familiar screens. Not because reading is inherently better, but because it requires more active engagement from your mind. Your brain works harder to process new information, creating stronger memory traces in the process. These traces become the building blocks of your personal timeline, the way you measure your life. Without them, days collapse into each other like a house of cards falling down. The solution isn't to fill every moment with forced activity or artificial stimulation throughout each day. It's to find small ways to break the trance of complete automation, gently and naturally throughout each hour. Sometimes this means choosing the harder path when an easier one exists and beckons you forward, taking stairs instead of elevators, walking instead of driving short distances when time allows you to breathe. These choices wake up your body and mind simultaneously, creating physical memories alongside mental ones. Your legs remember the climb. Your lungs remember working slightly harder than usual that particular day. The sensory richness of these experiences gives your brain more material to work with throughout each passing hour. Different muscles engaged, different sights from different heights, different sounds echoing in stairwells versus elevator shafts. Your timeline gains texture from these small physical adventures, each one creating a tiny anchor point. The day becomes the day you took the stairs, distinct from yesterday's elevator ride. Even choosing unfamiliar music can shift your mental landscape enough to create lasting impressions throughout each passing hour. Your ears work harder to process new melodies, new rhythms that don't match stored patterns. The song playing during your commute becomes part of that morning's unique signature in memory. Later, hearing it again might transport you back to that specific drive, that particular quality of light. This is how soundtrack and experience weave together in your mind's filing system throughout each passing day. Music becomes a key that unlocks specific moments, specific feelings, specific versions of yourself. The goal isn't to optimize every moment for maximum memory creation or perfect recall later on. It's to occasionally step outside the well-worn grooves of habit, just enough to stay awake. Your life already contains infinite opportunities for this gentle awakening, waiting patiently for your attention. These moments of gentle awareness don't require grand gestures or dramatic lifestyle overhauls to create lasting change. They work through accumulation, like drops of water slowly filling a vessel over time. Each small choice to engage differently adds another thread to the fabric of your days. The texture grows richer without you having to force or manufacture the process artificially at all. Your mind naturally responds to these variations by paying closer attention to what's happening around you. The familiar world reveals new details when you approach it from slightly different angles. A conversation with a neighbor you usually just wave to becomes a small landmark in your week. Their garden looks different up close. Their voice carries stories you never heard before. These human connections create some of the strongest anchors in your personal timeline of experiences throughout each week. Faces and voices stick in memory more powerfully than abstract information or routine tasks. The person becomes part of that particular day's signature, distinguishing it from all the others. Your brain files the interaction under multiple categories simultaneously, creating cross-references for future recall. This is why chance encounters often feel so significant when you remember them later on in life. They break the expected pattern while adding human warmth to the memory, creating lasting impressions. The grocery store conversation becomes the day you learned about Mrs. Chen's roses, her weekend gardening routine that fills her mornings with purpose and joy. Her gentle laugh echoes through that particular afternoon, making it memorable and warm. Her stories transform an ordinary errand into something you'll remember for months, maybe years ahead, through their warmth. These small exchanges weave themselves into the fabric of that particular afternoon, creating texture you didn't expect. The timing of these social moments can't be planned, only welcomed when they arrive naturally through your day. Your attention during these encounters determines how deeply they'll be encoded in your memory system over time. Half listening while thinking about your shopping list creates a thin, forgettable impression that fades quickly away. But genuine curiosity about another person's experience creates rich, multi-layered memories that last for years. The quality of your presence shapes the quality of your recollections in ways you'll notice later. This principle extends beyond conversations to any activity that requires your full engagement throughout the process. Cooking a new recipe demands attention in ways that reheating familiar leftovers doesn't require at all. Your senses work harder to process unfamiliar smells, textures, and timing sequences that challenge your routine. The kitchen becomes a laboratory where small experiments create lasting sensory memories throughout the evening. The dish you burned slightly becomes part of that evening's story, a detail that makes it distinct. These cooking adventures cost little but generate experiences rich enough to anchor entire evenings in memory. The process matters more than perfection when it comes to creating memorable moments that will last. The recipe becomes part of your evening's unique fingerprint, different from every other night you've cooked. These small departures from routine create temporal landmarks in your personal timeline, Your mind treats familiar activities like background music, processing them with minimal conscious attention throughout each passing day. But when something requires active problem solving, your awareness sharpens and begins to record more detailed memories. The difference shows up weeks later when you try to remember how you spent your evenings recently. The nights blur together, except for the one where you attempted something new, something that demanded your full presence. This is why learning creates such vivid memories, even when the subject matter seems ordinary or simple. Your brain allocates more resources to encoding experiences that challenge existing patterns and familiar ways of thinking. A pottery class stretches an evening in ways that watching television never quite manages to accomplish. Your hands work with unfamiliar materials, while your mind processes new techniques and unexpected textures. The clay responds differently each time you touch it, creating a conversation between intention and surprise. Your fingers remember the resistance, the way the wheel spins, the pressure needed to shape something beautiful. These physical memories layer themselves into that particular evening, creating depth that distinguishes it from countless others. The muscle memory becomes part of the story your mind tells itself about that specific night. Even failed attempts generate rich material for your memory system to work with over time. The bowl that collapsed becomes as memorable as the one that held its shape perfectly. This principle extends to any skill that requires your body and mind to work together simultaneously. Learning guitar creates memories in your fingertips, as well as your ears and mind. The chord progressions feel awkward at first, demanding conscious attention to finger placement and timing. Your brain works overtime to coordinate these new movements while processing the sounds you're creating. Each practice session becomes distinct because your hands are learning something they've never done before today. The calluses forming on your fingertips mark progress in ways your mind can track and remember. Months later, you'll remember the evening you finally managed to play that difficult transition smoothly. The accomplishment anchors itself in memory because it required sustained effort and conscious attention throughout the process. These learning experiences create what you might call elaborative encoding, though the technical term matters less than the feeling. Your brain builds multiple pathways to the same memory, making it easier to retrieve later. The sound connects to the finger positions, which connect to the satisfaction, which connect to the particular lighting in your room that evening. These cross-connections strengthen the memory and make it more vivid when recalled. Even reading unfamiliar authors can shift your mental landscape enough to create lasting impressions throughout each quiet evening. Your mind works harder to follow new writing styles, new ways of seeing the world. The sentences feel different in your head, requiring active translation between the author's perspective and your own understanding. This mental effort creates richer memories than scanning familiar genres or predictable plots. A challenging book becomes the book you read that winter, distinct from easier reads that fade into background noise. The difficulty itself becomes part of the memory, marking that particular season of your life. Your brain remembers the effort required to understand complex ideas, filing the experience under multiple categories simultaneously. The struggle becomes as memorable as the insights you eventually gained through persistence. This is why travel creates such powerful time-stretching effects, even on short trips to nearby places. Every sense encounters unfamiliar input that demands conscious processing and active attention throughout each moment. The different architecture catches your eye in ways your neighborhood buildings stopped doing years ago. Your ears work to decode accents, your nose processes new food smells, your feet adjust to different sidewalk textures. These sensory differences accumulate throughout the day, creating a dense collection of distinct memories that linger quietly. Your brain files each novel experience separately, rather than clustering them with familiar patterns. But you don't need to travel far to access this time-stretching effect in your daily life. Small changes in familiar routines can create similar results without the expense or planning required for distant trips. Taking a different route home introduces new visual patterns your brain must process and remember. The unfamiliar streets require navigation decisions that wake up your spatial awareness and conscious attention. These small detours cost nothing but generate enough novelty to distinguish one commute from hundreds of others. Your mind files the experience under the day I went home the long way, rather than generic travel time. The key lies in choosing unfamiliarity over efficiency. When time allows for such gentle experiments, these choices accumulate into a richer sense of lived experience without disrupting your necessary routines. Even grocery shopping can become memorable when you deliberately explore aisles you usually skip entirely. Your eyes encounter products you've never noticed, brands from countries you've never considered visiting. The spice aisle reveals complexity you never knew existed in your familiar supermarket building. Your nose processes scents that transport you momentarily to kitchens you've never seen but somehow recognize. These small explorations within familiar spaces create pockets of novelty that your memory system treats as distinct events. The ordinary errand becomes the day you discovered that interesting tea blend or unusual fruit. Your timeline gains texture from these micro-adventures, each one creating a tiny anchor point in otherwise routine weeks. The accumulation of small novelties builds into a richer sense of time passing meaningfully. The goal isn't to make every moment extraordinary or to optimize each experience for maximum memory creation. It's simply to notice when automation has taken over completely, leaving no traces for your mind to collect. Your life already offers countless opportunities for gentle awareness, waiting patiently for your attention to return. These moments don't require dramatic changes, just occasional willingness to choose the path that asks slightly more of you. Sometimes the gentlest shifts create the most lasting changes in how time moves through your days. A single conversation with a neighbor you've never spoken to before can stretch an ordinary afternoon into something memorable. Your mind files these unexpected encounters differently than routine interactions, creating distinct markers that separate one week from another. The surprise element alone generates enough novelty to anchor that particular moment in your personal timeline. But it's the deeper connections that really transform your relationship with passing time in ways you might not expect. When you listen carefully to someone's story, your attention becomes fully present in that specific moment. The act of genuine listening requires your mind to process not just words, but tone, emotion, and meaning simultaneously. This multi-layered attention creates rich memories that feel substantial when you look back on them later. Your brain works harder during these focused interactions, building complex neural patterns that resist the usual fading process. The effort itself becomes part of what makes the experience stick in your memory over time. Even brief moments of unexpected kindness can slow your internal clock in surprisingly powerful ways throughout any ordinary day. Helping someone carry groceries creates a small break in your usual mental autopilot, demanding present moment awareness and conscious choice. Your timeline suddenly includes this specific act of connection rather than another forgettable stretch of routine movement. The interruption becomes a gentle landmark that distinguishes this particular trip from countless others you've made. These micro-connections accumulate into a sense that your days contain more substance, more actual living than pure efficiency allows. Your memory system treats each genuine interaction as worth preserving rather than discarding into background noise. Time still moves at the same rate, but it carries more meaning as it passes. Your childhood summers felt endless, partly because they contained so many firsts, so many moments of discovery and wonder, but you can still access that same time-stretching quality through deliberate attention to what's actually happening around you. The key lies in recognizing when you've shifted into complete automation, when your mind has stopped collecting experiences entirely. These moments of recognition become opportunities to choose awareness over efficiency, presence over productivity for just a few minutes. Your days already contain countless invitations to step out of mental autopilot if you're willing to notice them. The morning light hitting your kitchen counter differently, the way your coffee tastes when you actually pay attention to it. These small acts of noticing don't require extra time, just a gentle shift in how you allocate your attention. Your brain responds to this focused awareness by creating clearer, more detailed memories of ordinary moments. The texture of your daily experience becomes richer without any major lifestyle changes or dramatic interventions needed. Simply choosing to be present for small portions of your existing routine can transform how substantial your days feel. Your memory system treats these moments of conscious attention as worth preserving, filing them under specific dates. The Tuesday you really tasted your lunch becomes distinct from all the Tuesdays when you ate while distracted. This principle extends to any activity you usually perform on mental autopilot throughout your regular weekly schedule. Washing dishes with full attention creates a completely different experience than rushing through the same task while planning tomorrow. Your hands feel the warm water, the smooth surfaces, the satisfaction of transforming something dirty into something clean. These sensory details anchor the experience in memory rather than letting it dissolve into background routine. The act of folding laundry becomes meditative when you notice the textures, the warmth, the simple pleasure of creating order. Your mind processes these details consciously, rather than dismissing them as meaningless domestic tasks. Even walking from your car to your front door offers opportunities for this kind of gentle awareness practice. The phone date you marked weeks ago arrives, bringing its own sense of time moving differently. You notice how anticipation stretched those waiting days, while the actual conversation seems to compress hours into minutes. Your timeline gains substance through accumulated attention, rather than accumulated activities. The goal isn't to be constantly mindful, or to turn every moment into a meditation exercise that exhausts you. It's simply to recognize when complete automation has taken over, and choose occasional moments of conscious participation. Your life moves at its own natural rhythm, but you can influence how much of it you actually experience. The choice between presence and autopilot remains available in countless small moments throughout each day. Time will continue its steady passage regardless of your attention level, but your subjective experience can become remarkably richer. The years ahead don't have to feel like they're accelerating beyond your ability to catch them. Your relationship with time can shift through these gentle practices of noticing, creating more substantial memories. Each moment of conscious attention becomes a small investment in how rich your future memories will feel. Your older self will thank you for these pockets of presence scattered throughout otherwise routine days. The feeling of keys in your hand, the sound your shoes make on different surfaces, the way the air moves around you. These micro moments of presence cost nothing but generate enough conscious experience to distinguish one evening from another. Your mind processes this contrast between expected time and experienced time, filing both versions in your memory system. The waiting and the talking become part of the same story, each giving meaning to the other. The conversation creates its own pocket of time, separate from the steady tick of clocks around you. Your attention shapes how these minutes feel, stretching or compressing them based on what you choose to notice. When you're fully engaged in listening, time seems to pause between heartbeats. Your mind processes each word, each pause, each shift in tone with careful attention throughout the exchange. This focused awareness creates what feels like temporal expansion in the moment itself, stretching seconds into something fuller. The same 15 minutes can feel brief or endless, depending on your level of presence today. Your brain builds richer memories during these periods of concentrated attention, filing away details it might otherwise ignore. The texture of someone's voice, the way they pause before important thoughts, becomes part of your stored experience. These detailed memories resist the usual fading that happens with routine interactions throughout your day, holding on to their richness. When you recall the conversation later, it feels substantial rather than vague or compressed. The contrast becomes clear when you compare focused conversations to distracted ones you've had recently. Half listening while checking your phone creates thin memories that blur together over time. Your mind treats divided attention as less worthy of careful storage, letting those interactions fade into background noise. The result is fewer distinct markers, separating one social encounter from another. But when you give someone your complete attention, that conversation becomes a landmark in your personal timeline. The investment of focus pays dividends in how rich the memory feels later. This principle extends beyond conversations to any activity that typically runs on mental autopilot in your routine. Driving the same route while fully present creates a different experience than driving while lost in thought. You notice things you've passed hundreds of times before, the way shadows fall, the rhythm of lights. These details anchor the drive in memory rather than letting it disappear. The familiar becomes unfamiliar when you approach it with fresh attention, creating novelty within your existing patterns. Your brain responds by treating this drive as worth remembering, rather than forgetting. Even mundane tasks transform when you shift from efficiency mode to awareness mode for brief periods. Folding laundry becomes an opportunity to notice textures, colors, the satisfaction of creating order from chaos. Your hands feel the warmth of clothes from the dryer, the smoothness of cotton, the weight of different fabrics. These sensory details create a fuller experience than rushing through the same task while planning tomorrow. The goal isn't to be mindful every moment. That would be exhausting and impractical for daily life. It's about recognizing when complete automation has taken over and choosing occasional presence. These small shifts in attention don't require extra time, just a gentle redirection of focus you already possess. The Tuesday you really noticed your coffee becomes distinct from all the Tuesdays you drank it, distractedly. Your memory system treats these moments of conscious participation as worth preserving under specific dates and circumstances. The accumulation of such moments creates a sense that your days contain more actual living. Time continues its steady passage regardless of your attention level, but your subjective experience grows remarkably richer. The years ahead don't have to feel like they're accelerating beyond your ability to catch them. Your relationship with time can shift through these gentle practices of noticing what's actually happening around you. Each moment of conscious attention becomes an investment in how substantial your future memories will feel. The phone rings, and you realize an hour has passed since you started this simple task of presence. Your mind has been collecting details, building memories, creating markers that will distinguish this evening from others. The passage of time responds to how much you experience, not by changing its speed. The choice between presence and autopilot remains available in countless moments throughout each day. Your older self will thank you for these pockets of awareness, scattered through otherwise routine days like small gifts. The feeling of keys in your hand, the sound of rain on windows, the way light changes throughout the afternoon. These micro moments of presence cost nothing but generate enough conscious experience to separate one day from another. Your timeline gains substance through accumulated attention rather than accumulated activities alone. The contrast between expected time and experienced time becomes part of your memory system's filing process. Both versions get stored, the clock time and the felt time, each giving meaning to the other. When you look back on this period of your life, these moments of conscious participation will stand out. They become the texture that prevents weeks from blurring together into one indistinguishable stretch of routine. Your mind naturally seeks these islands of awareness within the ocean of daily automation that modern life requires. The recognition itself, noticing when you've drifted into complete autopilot, becomes the first step back toward presence. The science suggests that this isn't about perfection or constant mindfulness that exhausts your mental resources. It's about balance between efficiency and experience, between getting things done and actually living them. Your brain has evolved to handle routine tasks automatically, freeing up conscious attention for what matters most. The key is choosing wisely where to invest that limited but precious resource of focused awareness. Time will always feel like it's speeding up as you accumulate more years and more routine patterns. But within that natural acceleration, you can create pockets of expansion through deliberate attention to the present moment. The phone call ends, and you notice how the conversation created its own sense of duration. Minutes stretched into something that felt both brief and eternal, depending on which aspect you focus on. This is the paradox of time perception. It can feel fast and slow simultaneously, depending on your perspective. Your mind holds both experiences without contradiction, filing them as different aspects of the same event. Looking back on these moments of awareness, you start to see patterns in how your mind handles time. The days when you paid attention feel fuller in memory, while the automatic days seem to have vanished completely. Your brain doesn't just record what happened, it records how much you were there for it. A distracted conversation leaves barely a trace, but one where you were fully present creates detailed files that linger. These files become the anchors that separate one week from another in your personal timeline. Without them, months can blur together into one continuous stretch of sameness that feels strangely hollow. The weekend that felt short while you lived, it might actually expand in memory if it contained rich experiences. Your mind builds a thicker record when you're engaged, creating substance that lasts through time. But the weekend spent scrolling through your phone leaves almost no memorable traces behind. Your attention was divided among dozens of fleeting inputs, none worth filing carefully in long-term memory. This creates a strange effect where busy weekends can feel longer in hindsight than lazy ones. The density of distinct memories determines how substantial the time period feels later when you reflect. Your brain measures duration differently when you're looking forward versus looking back through stored experiences. Clock time stays constant, but psychological time shifts based on what you were doing. A watched pot never boils because your focused attention makes each second feel stretched and obvious. But that same focus creates memories that will feel rich when you recall them. The anticipation of waiting slows down your experience of the present moment significantly. Your mind has nothing to do but notice time passing, making each increment feel longer than usual. Yet when you're absorbed in something engaging, hours can disappear without your awareness. Your attention gets pulled into the activity, leaving no mental resources to track duration as it passes. This absorption state creates what feels like time travel. You look up surprised to find that evening has arrived. But the memory of those absorbed hours often feels thin and compressed. Your brain was so focused on the task that it didn't bother creating detailed time markers. The experience was rich while it happened, but leaves little trace afterward in your memory. Children live mostly in this absorbed state, which explains why their days feel endless while happening. Every experience demands their complete attention, because everything is still relatively new to them each day. But their summers feel long in memory too, packed with first experiences and novel discoveries that create lasting impressions. Each day contained enough new information to create distinct mental files that remain vivid. As you age, fewer experiences qualify as truly novel, so your brain creates fewer detailed records. The familiar gets processed quickly and filed away without much attention to specific timing. Your morning routine becomes one blended memory rather than dozens of separate occasions. Tuesday's breakfast blurs with Wednesday's because they contained identical elements and required no conscious thought. This efficiency serves you well for managing daily life, but it compresses your sense of lived time. Weeks pass without creating enough distinct memories to feel substantial in retrospect when you look back. The solution isn't to make every moment novel. That would be exhausting and impractical for functioning. Instead, you can sprinkle small variations into existing routines to create gentle landmarks. Taking a different route home once a week gives your brain something new to process and remember. The familiar journey becomes unfamiliar, just enough to require conscious attention again, creating fresh traces. These tiny novelties don't need to be dramatic adventures or expensive experiences. Sometimes it's just noticing the texture of your coffee mug or really listening to a song. Your brain responds to conscious attention by creating richer memories, regardless of whether the activity itself is exciting. The quality of your presence matters more than the activity's inherent interest level. Even washing dishes becomes memorable when you pay attention to the warm water and soap bubbles. Your hands feel the smooth plates, the weight of glasses, the satisfaction of creating cleanliness. This transforms a routine chore into a moment of conscious experience that your memory system treats as worth preserving. The evening becomes distinct from other evenings because you are actually there for it. The accumulation of such moments creates a sense that your life contains more actual living. Time doesn't slow down, but your experience of it becomes denser and more substantial. Your future self will have more to remember when you invest attention in present moments. The choice between autopilot and awareness shapes how rich your personal timeline feels when you look back. These pockets of consciousness, scattered through routine days, become the texture that prevents years from feeling empty. They cost nothing but generate enough experience to separate one season from another. The paradox resolves itself when you realize that time's apparent acceleration is partly an illusion created by memory. More conscious moments create more substantial memories, which makes time feel fuller rather than faster. Your relationship with duration shifts when you understand how your brain actually constructs the experience of time. The feeling of speed comes partly from having less to remember about recent periods, but you can influence this process by choosing where to invest your limited attention throughout each day. Small moments of presence accumulate into a richer sense of having lived through time rather than just survived it. The phone call from earlier returns to your mind, and you notice how present you were during that conversation. It created its own sense of duration that feels both complete and lasting. This is how time becomes your ally, rather than something that slips away too quickly. Through gentle attention to what's actually happening, you create the substance that makes life feel full rather than rushed. The richness you create today becomes tomorrow's sense of having truly lived through time. Each conscious choice to notice builds a foundation, creating lasting impressions slowly. These moments accumulate quietly, shaping your personal history. This gentle practice shapes how your years will feel when you look back. The texture of memory depends on how present you were. Years from now, you'll look back at this period and find real substance there, waiting quietly for your reflection. Not because anything dramatic happened, but because you were present for the small moments that actually make up a life. The texture of lived experience comes from these accumulated instances of awareness, building something meaningful that endures through time. Your brain weaves them into a story that feels full rather than empty when you trace it backward. These moments become the threads that create meaning from ordinary days, building something lasting and true within your personal history. This is why some people seem to age more slowly than others, moving through time differently than their peers. They've learned to create more memorable moments, filling their days with conscious presence. Their secret lies in how they choose to spend their attention throughout each day. Moment by moment, their days contain the same 24 hours, but feel denser with actual experience and presence, creating lasting impressions. The secret isn't doing more things, it's being more present for the things you're already doing. This presence transforms routine into something worth remembering, something that stays with you through time. A single conversation can expand to fill an entire evening when you're fully engaged with it, listening carefully. Your attention transforms ordinary interactions into experiences worth remembering clearly, creating depth from simple exchanges. The same words carry more weight when you're truly listening to them with care and openness. The same principle applies to every activity throughout your day, quietly working in the background. Walking becomes memorable when you notice the rhythm of your steps on different surfaces beneath you, feeling each connection. Each footfall creates its own small impression in your memory, building something substantial from simple movement. Cooking dinner shifts from routine to experience when you pay attention to colors and textures around you, noticing details. Your brain treats conscious moments differently than automatic ones, filing them with more detail and care. The sizzle of onions becomes part of your day's story, a small but meaningful detail worth remembering. This doesn't require meditation or special techniques, just occasional breaks from mental autopilot. Your awareness naturally creates the landmarks that separate one day from another, marking time with presence. These pauses cost nothing but generate lasting impressions that stay with you through the years. The calendar on your wall marks identical squares, but your memory fills them differently with varying richness. Some days expand in recollection, while others compress into barely noticeable blips, depending on your attention. Your attention during those days makes all the difference in how they're remembered later. The difference lies in how much attention you invested while those days were actually happening around you. Your future self inherits whatever presence you choose to cultivate now, receiving this gift across time. This inheritance shapes how rich your memories feel when you look back at them. This creates a gentle paradox about time's apparent acceleration as you age, something worth understanding. The speed you feel might actually slow when you understand how memory works with conscious attention. Your brain holds the key to this mysterious process, working quietly behind your awareness each day. Your brain constructs duration from the material you give it to work with, building your sense of time. More conscious moments provide more substantial building blocks for your personal timeline, creating architecture from awareness. Each aware moment becomes part of your inner architecture, something solid you can return to. The years don't actually move faster. They just contain fewer distinct memories to stretch them out. But you can influence this process through small choices about where to focus your limited attention. Your attention becomes a tool for shaping time itself, bending your experience of duration. Even routine activities become memorable when approached with gentle curiosity and openness to what's actually happening. The familiar path to work reveals new details when you look for them consciously, noticing what's always been there. Your morning coffee tastes different when you actually taste it instead of drinking it automatically while thinking. These moments of presence cost nothing but generate lasting impressions that stay with you through time. The accumulation creates a sense that time contains more living, rather than just more passing by. Your relationship with duration shifts when you become an active participant rather than a passive observer. This isn't about slowing time itself. That's impossible. But you can change your experience. It's about creating enough experience within time to make it feel substantial rather than empty and rushed. The phone call you remember from earlier demonstrates this principle perfectly, showing how attention creates lasting memory. Your attention during that conversation created a complete memory that still feels present and real today. Compare that to phone calls you've had while distracted by other tasks, barely registering them at all. They disappear from memory almost immediately, leaving barely any trace of having happened at all. Your brain allocates memory resources based on where your attention was focused during those precious moments. Divided attention creates thin memories, while focused attention creates rich ones that last through time. This explains why multitasking makes time feel like it's disappearing without leaving much behind in your awareness. Your awareness gets split among multiple streams, creating weak impressions of each one rather than meaningful depth. But when you do one thing at a time with full presence, that activity expands to fill memory. The same amount of clock time produces more substance, creating more sense of having lived fully. Children naturally do this, because they haven't yet learned to split their attention efficiently across multiple tasks. Every experience demands their complete focus, because it might still be new to them, requiring their full attention. Their intense presence creates the rich memories that make childhood summers feel endless in retrospect. Each day contained enough novel information to create distinct mental files, separate and memorable in their own way. As you develop adult efficiency, you lose some of this natural presence that children maintain. Your brain learns to process familiar situations quickly without conscious attention, saving energy for more important tasks. This serves you well for managing complex responsibilities, but it compresses your sense of lived time. Efficiency trades richness for speed in ways you might not notice happening gradually over time. The solution involves conscious choices about when to engage fully versus when to operate efficiently. Not every moment needs intense attention, but some moments deserve it and benefit from focused awareness. You can create islands of presence within seas of routine, marking certain experiences as worth remembering. These conscious moments become the landmarks that prevent weeks from blurring together completely into sameness. The key is recognizing that your experience of time's passage depends partly on choices you make. Attention shapes memory, and memory shapes your sense of duration in ways both subtle and profound. When you understand this relationship, you gain some influence over how full or empty your years feel. The power lies in deciding where to invest your limited conscious awareness throughout each day. This doesn't require dramatic changes to your lifestyle or schedule, just small shifts in focus. Small shifts in attention can create surprisingly substantial differences in how time feels as it passes. The evening light streaming through your window right now offers one such opportunity for presence. You can notice it consciously or let it pass unobserved into automatic processing, missing the moment entirely. Your choice in this moment contributes to whether today becomes memorable or forgettable in your personal timeline. These micro-decisions accumulate into your overall sense of having lived fully, rather than just survived another day. Time will continue moving at its steady pace regardless of your attention to it. Thanks for being here tonight. Good night.